Welcome to the engineering class for March the 22nd, the last day of this term. I wasn't planning to record this session, but I see there's several people missing for some strange reason. And so I am going to record it because we're going to be talking about some really important stuff today that those of you that aren't here will probably appreciate having it recorded. Okay, last time we met, we talked briefly about the fact that Tinkercad allows you to do a lot more than just electrical circuits. In fact, the electrical circuit part is actually a relatively new addition to Tinkercad. Originally, the reason Tinkercad was set up was to do 3D drawings. That's why they call it Tinkercad. CAD is computer-aided design. It's where you do the drawings in the computer, and you can see them in 3 dimensions. And then once you get them the way that you like them, then you can click a button and it'll give you some files that you can then email those files off to a machine shop, and the machinist will look at them and know what they do, what they need to do in order to make the parts for you. And in fact, most of the machine shops right now are so automated that the machinist doesn't even have to look at the drawings. The machinist will just take the file that you send him and just put it into his computer-aided machine, and it will mill out a piece of metal that's exactly the right shape that you want, right size with the holes in the right places and all that. It's a fantastic way of doing engineering that didn't exist back when I was first starting into it. We had to draw everything out by hand, and we had to ride dinosaurs to get to school and all that kind of fun stuff. Okay, so last time we met, I told you that was the plan, and I said if you're bored, go in and play with Tinkercad and see what you find. Now, I took a quick survey last time about how many of you have done some sort of CAD drawing, and the majority of you said you had, but a significant number of you said you hadn't. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a real super quick, superficial description of how to use Tinkercad. What I'm going to do is not a substitute for the online Tinkercad tutorials. Their tutorials are really fantastic. But I'm going to give you just a real quick thing of the basics. And then your assignment is going to be to create something. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Okay, so let me get the proper thing open here. Okay, and now I'll share my screen with you. All right, so if you were to open up Tinkercad, you would see something like this. Now, the circuits here is where we've been doing all of our work up until now, but we're going to stay up in the 3D designs. Hang on, somebody just got here. Let me let them into the class here. Okay, so we're going to be working in 3-dimensional designs, which, as I said before, is the original reason why Tinkercad was invented. Now, what you're seeing here are a bunch of different designs that I've done previously or that my students have done. And so you can see some of the things that we do here. Now, these are just little versions. I mean, simple things like here's a Lego brick. And you can take multiple bricks and you can put them together to make walls and things. Here's a simple traffic light that we created. This heart-shaped candy box is something we're going to be talking about a lot more very soon. But some of these things are pretty sophisticated. Let's go to this one here. This was something that one of my students created that I thought was really good. And you guys are going to learn how to do this. And the neat thing is that you don't have to do everything from scratch here, because once this thing loads, you're going to see a very complicated thing. Oh, here we go. Okay. All right. So this is a gearbox that you can see very complicated. It's got a whole bunch of gears and handles and things like that, different sizes of gears, and it's got different shafts. And if you had to make this thing from scratch, if you had to create the gears and things from scratch, wow, that'd be a huge job. So, the neat thing is that you don't have to create that from scratch. There are websites that you can go to, which I'll show you later, not today, but there are pre-made gears and pre-made other things that you can use. Like for instance, in our robotics efforts, when we are designing a robot for the robotics club, and we want to see how it's all going to fit together and play with different ways of maybe putting it together, we don't have to design it from scratch. Like for instance, let's say there's a motor that we're going to buy and use in the robot. If we go to the motor manufacturer's website, they will have CAD drawings already done that we can just download and import them into our robot. And same thing with all the different gears that we're thinking of using, and various arms and electrical components even. If you go to the manufacturer's website, they will have CAD drawings in a standardized format, and you can just import all these things and then put them together. Now, you'll probably want to make the frame from scratch, and there are some things that you will have to make from scratch, but not that hard to do. The really complex stuff, the gears and motors and things, you just import those. And then you put them together, and you can have something that's quite complicated. I mean, much more complicated than this thing that you're looking at right now. So it's a great way of designing things. Now, what you're going to do today is not this complicated. What you're going to do today is we're going to manipulate some basic shapes, something that many of you have already done before. And so I apologize for duplicating what you've done before, but but there's still a substantial fraction of you guys who have not done this before. And so we really do need to start from scratch. Now, let me show you a thing that I created a while back that is kind of like what your homework is going to be for today's assignment, this heart-shaped candy box. So let me go in here, and I'm going to tinker this. And so this is the end goal. Now, I don't want you to copy exactly what I've done here, but I want you to make something that's kind of sort of in a way similar to it. All right, so what you're seeing here is a heart, a nice thick heart-shaped object. It's got this little ridge right here. Okay, so you see that ridge line right there? So that should make you suspicious that there's more at play here than just a simple heart shape. So the idea is this is a candy box. And so, well, if it's a candy box, that means we should be able to open it up, right? Okay, well, let's see if we can open it. So I'm going to click on this, and some little like handle objects appear. And in a few minutes, you're going to learn what those are and how to use those. But for right now, I'm just going to lift it up, and hey, sure enough, look, inside the box, there are some candies. And we can zoom in. You see we have different kinds of candies. We have dark chocolates and we have light chocolates. And one of the candies here has a nifty little squiggle design on it. I could have done that on the rest of them too, but I got lazy. And now we can move these candies around if we want. We can take them out of the box if we want. Okay, and we can manipulate them around that way. Now, what about the lid here? I wonder if there's more to this lid than we've talked about before. Okay, so now the way I'm moving around and everything is something I'm going to explain later. But let's turn it so we can look at this lid from the bottom. Hey, sure enough. Now, when I went through right here, this is the floor. So I'm lowering myself down, and right, I'm at the floor, and Bingo, I just went through the floor. Okay, so now I'm underneath the floor, and we treat it as if it's a glass floor. And so when I look up, I can see, yep, there's the lid. You can see it's got that hollow shape on it, and it's made exactly so that it fits on top of the heart-shaped box. And now that I've removed the candies, if I want to now close the box back up again, I can just close it up like that. Okay, and then I can eat the candies, and off we go. Okay, so your assignment is going to be to make something like this. Like I said, I don't want you to copy it, but something that basically it needs to have at least 3 separate objects. So in this case, if you count the number of objects, the lid counts as one object, the box counts as an object, and then each one of the candies counts as a separate object. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I've got 10 different objects in mine. All right. Now notice that some of these objects are hollowed out. So the lower part of the box has this hollowed out area where I can put my candies. And also the upper part of the box also has a hollowed out area so that it can fit over the top of the lower box there. All right. So those are the requirements for what you're going to have to make. It has to have at least 3 objects. I don't care what the objects are, I'll leave it up to you. At least one of the objects has to have a hollowed out region in it where you could put stuff if you wanted to. Okay. All right. Now that we understand what is the end goal, let's go through and learn how to make these types of things. And by the way, for today's assignment, everything that you need to make, everything that you make needs to be made from scratch. If you know how to import items into Tinkercad, well, don't do that, at least not for today's assignment. Today, everything that we do has to be made from scratch. Now, as I pointed out last time, there are tremendously done tutorials that will teach you how to do everything you need to know. I'm going to give you the Hendrix tutorial in a few minutes, but let me just remind you what I said last time. If you click on the Learn tab, then you get these different little routines that the Tinkercad people have created that will tell you how to take the basic shapes and import them onto the screen, and how to modify them in various ways, how to move them around, how to zoom in and zoom out, how to change the view, which is stuff that I'm going to show you in just a minute. But if you click on these, in fact, tell you what, let's click on one just to see. Let's do the place it tutorial. Okay, now Tinkercad is running a little slow like it usually does during the day. In the evenings, it runs much faster. Okay, all right, so over on the left side, it has a bunch of instructions. And now in this case, it's telling me great job because I've already done this tutorial before. Let me reset it. So it gets rid of all the stuff that I've done previously. So this is what it's going to look like when you come in. All right, so over here on the left, it gives you instructions about what to do. All right, so it says here, see the orange shape in the work plane? That's a hint. Okay, hints guide you. Okay, so find the box that's in the shape over on the right side. So, okay, so we come over here. Now they have a little, this thing right here, this is the hint that they were talking about. And by the way, the work plane, you can see on the lower left, it's labeled work plane. That's the glass floor where we're going to put all of these objects. Okay, so this orange cube right here is a hint that that's what they want you to have at the end of this little 2-minute tutorial here. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to look over on the right side, and you've got all these different shapes that you can import from, just like just like when we were working with the electrical circuits. And over on the right side, we had the different circuit elements we could all import if we wanted. You know, we could import an Arduino or a resistor or whatever. So the same thing here. We've got our basic shapes, which are right here. And we've also got the more advanced shapes that we can go with if we want. But let's just stick with the basic shapes for right now. Okay, so what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to import a cube. So I click on it and I drag it in. Okay, and I can put it anywhere that I want, but they want me to put it right there in the middle. Okay, so we've clicked on it, we dragged it into the work plane, but we haven't put it where we wanted it to, where they wanted us to. So we're gonna click on continue to next step. So I'm gonna say next. Okay. And so it says, oh, okay. Now I thought they were going to I thought they were going to chastise me because I didn't put the box where they wanted me to put it. But it looks like they congratulated me just for dragging it onto the work planes. That's a pretty low bar in order to get the congratulations there. Okay, so we're done. So now I could have dragged on all these other shapes. I could have got a cone shape, and I could have got some text that I could put in here. And I could change what the text says. I could say, Mr. Hendricks. Okay. And then I can change the size of that, which, you know, and same with this block here, I can change the size of the block by clicking on it and dragging on it. And then let's suppose that I want to put the Mr. Hendricks up on top of the block. Okay, so what I can do is I can click here to lift it up. Now, I need to view this from different points of view. So right now, I don't like my viewing thing here. So I want to change the view. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my mouse, and I'm going to right click on the mouse, and I'm going to hold down the right click, and then by moving the mouse around, I can change the view. So you can see that I've taken the Mr. Hendricks and I've lifted it up into the air. And let me show you how I did that. When I click on the Mr. Hendricks, I get all these different handles. So the black thing, that's the one that allows me to lift it up and put it down. Okay. And these white squares, those are the ones that allow me to change the size of it. Okay, so now I've got it lifted up high enough that it's going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on top of that box. Okay, but if I right click and then I move this down, so now that I'm looking from the top, you can see that I'm not positioned over the box. And by the way, if you look in the upper left here, you see where it says top, and then I can click here so I can view from the front. I can view from the front right corner. I can view from the right up here. So I can use this thing to view from various angles, or I can just right click and drag around on the right click. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I want to position the Mr. Hendricks thing so it's on the box. Now, it looks like the box might be a bit small, so let me make the box a little bit bigger. And I wish, you know, this is really annoying. We're going to talk more about this thing that keeps popping up. For right now, it's just an annoyance, but later it's going to become important. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on the Mr. Hendricks, and I'm just going to drag it so that it's in the middle here. So I'm going to make myself a nameplate, say. Okay. All right, so there's the Mr. Hendricks thing, and this little cone. Let's get rid of the cone. I'm going to click on the cone, and I'm going to hit delete. I might want to add him in later, but for right now, let's just look at this. Okay, so it looks like the Mr. Hendricks is on the block, but if I click on this again, you can see it's actually up way too high. All right, so I need to lower it down. So I'm going to click on that label there, and I'm going to lower it down. And now I want to zoom in because I'm worried that maybe it might not be all the way down. You know, I'm worried that maybe it's a little bit up. So I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna come in here, and on my mouse I have a little wheel. Then I can roll the wheel in order to come in closer or move out farther. Okay. Or if you don't have the wheel, you can click on the plus and minus signs here. Okay, so now you can see that even though it might, from the top, it looks as if the Mr. Hendrix is sitting on top of the plate where I want it. Okay, if we come to the front view, and now even from the front view, it looks like it's on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to turn it just a little bit more. So now you can see that it's not actually touching. So I'm going to click here and then I'm going to use the black triangle to lower it down. And I'm actually going to embed it in a little bit. So the Mr. Hendrix part of this is now actually, the bottom part of it is actually embedded in the block. So I'm 100% sure that the name is on there, right? Okay, so now I'm going to come back to top view. And so top is what I want. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Okay, so there's my nameplate. But maybe I don't like the colors. Okay, so let's suppose that I want the Mr. Hendrix part of it to be in white. So I'm going to click on that. And then this little box here, it gives me lots of different options where I can change the height and the bevel and the segments. We'll talk about those in just a minute. This is where I change what it is that's typed there. This is where I change the color. Okay, so let's say I don't want the name to be red. I want the name to be maybe blue. Okay, a nice dark blue. I like that. Let's do that. Nice dark blue. Okay, so there's that. And so yeah, maybe I like that. Maybe I don't. Now the thing that it's sitting on, the red thing, that's a little thicker than I'd like for a nameplate. So what I want to do now, I don't want to lift the entire red block up. I want to make the red block thinner. Now, if I click on the black triangle, it's going to lift the whole thing up, which is not what I want. So I'm going to click on the white one. And then you can see using the white one, I can now make the nameplate thinner. Okay, but when I did that, now the name part is no longer attached to it. So I'm going to have to lower that down a little bit. There we go. Okay. And so there we go. And now you may notice that the Mr. Hendrix part, if I look at it exactly from the top, it looks like the Mr. Hendrix part might be a little bit high. In fact, I'm going to purposely misadjust it here. Okay, so in fact, I'm going to really exaggerate it. Okay, so my name is not very well centered on the block. So at this point, I stroke my chin and I say, if only there was some way to get the software to automatically center the name in the block for me. Well, there is. Okay, so let's go back in here. So I'm going to click on the Mr. Hendrix part, and then I'm going to hold down the Shift key while I click on the red background. And so now both of them have been selected. And so now if you look up here, this option here, if you guys have worked with PowerPoint, it's very, very much like the way PowerPoint does things. Okay, so I can align it. So what I could do is I could align them so they're all aligned one way, or actually that wasn't what I really wanted. I want to align them so that they're centered. Okay, so I'm going to click on this, and you see all these little black dots that appear. So clicking on the black dot, that allows me to say, how do I want to align them? So do I want to align them all to the left? Do I want to align the centers? Do I want to align them all to the right? So in this case, I want to align the centers. But it's a little bit too high. So I want it to be centered in the up-down direction. So I'm going to click on that one. Okay. And now, if I did it here, it aligns the bottom parts, but that's not what I want. Okay. So there we go. So now here is my nameplate that says Mr. Hendrix. And so it's now centered, and the Mr. Hendrix part sticks out. And okay, we're done. Okay. Now, what if what if I wanted, instead of the Mr. Hendricks part to stick out, what if I wanted the Mr. Hendricks part to be indented? I want there to be a groove where the groove spells out Mr. Hendricks. Anybody know how to do that? Tell you what, I've been doing too much talking. Those of you that have done this before, tell me, how could I change the Mr. Hendricks part of my nameplate so that instead of sticking out, it's engrooved in, so that I have little grooves that spell out Mr. Hendricks? How would I do that? Nobody?
Can't you make it like a hole type?
Yes,
piece?
exactly. That's exactly how I'm going to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Mr. Hendricks part. And then you see I've got an option here for solid or whole. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to click on the whole. Okay. And now when I come back here, you can see that something has changed. It looks kind of weird. It looks kind of transparent like. Okay. But it looks like it's still sticking out. It's just kind of transparent. So what I do then is now that I've made the Hendricks part transparent, I'm going to click on the Hendricks part, and I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to click on the red background part. And now I'm going to merge the two of them together. This button that you see right here, this allows you to group things together or merge them together. So when I click on that, okay, now what you see is that the nameplate, if I look at it from the side, you see nothing sticking out anymore. And in fact, if I zoom in, you can see that the Mr. Hendricks part is now, okay, it's now engraved in there. Okay, so there's grooves there, and the grooves there spell out Mr. Hendricks. Okay, now, what if I wanted the Mr. Hendricks thing to go all the way through? Not just be a little indent that goes partway through, but I wanted to go all the way through. Well, okay, what I could do is I could click on this again. Now, currently the Hendricks part and the red part, they are now merged together. I'm going to need to unmerge them in order to do what I want to do next. So this one button that I'm pointing out right here, this was the group button. Now I need to temporarily ungroup it. And now you'll see that it's sticking out again. What I can do now is I can just lower it down. In fact, let me move this over a little bit here. So I'm going to lower it down. Okay. Now, if it was thick enough, I could find the right point here where I could lower it down and have it stick out, but I'm not sure that's it. So what I'm going to do is before I lower it down, I'm going to make it be thicker. Okay, so now it's a lot thicker. So now when I lower it down, you can see how the whole part is sticking all the way through. Now, when I look at it right here, it's not obvious that it's sticking all the way through, but it will become obvious as soon as I click on the name and then click on the red background and then regroup them back together again. Okay, now you can see that it does in fact go all the way through. Okay. Now I want to move it left and right and up and down. Here's one where if you don't have a touchscreen computer, it's going to be a little bit tricky. If you have a touchscreen computer, just use 2 fingers, touch the screen with 2 fingers, and then you can move it left, right, up, down as much as you want. If you don't have 2 fingers, then it's a little bit trickier. So let's suppose that it's down here like this, and I want to put it in the center of the screen, but I don't have a touch screen, so I can't do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and so this one here, fit in view, if I click that, then whatever it is that I've highlighted before I do that, okay, so let's say I click on that. So whatever is highlighted, when I click on this thing, it's going to automatically center that on the screen. So if I had 2 objects, let's say I've got this cone in here. Okay, so if I want to center the cone, I click on the cone, click this, and you see it automatically centers the cone on the screen. Okay. And then I say, well, I'm not interested in the cone, I'm interested in the nameplate. So I click on the nameplate, click on this, and it automatically centers the nameplate. And so now if I hold down my right button, then I can change the view, but I will always be looking with the nameplate in the center of the screen. And then if I want to zoom in, I can zoom in, zoom out, I can zoom out, okay? And if I want to view it from the front, there I'm viewing it from the front. If I want to view it from the side, now I'm viewing it from the side, and so forth and so on. Or I prefer to just right click and then just move it around that way. That way you can get any angle you want. Okay, now there's more we need to learn, but let me pause here and just say, are there any questions about anything that we've done so far? Okay. All right, good. All right, so tell you what, now we're actually still in the tutorial right now. The tutorial, you know, what I've done was way beyond what the tutorial wanted us to do. Normally what you would do in the tutorial is once you've dragged this little box into the screen and the tutorial showers you with stars and says congratulations, normally what you do is you just say done there, and then you go on to the next lesson in the tutorial. And the next lesson, let's see. Okay, here it comes. Yeah, Tinkercad's being a little slow again. Okay, and again, because I've gone through these tutorials before, everything's already there. So let me reset the tutorial. So it looks more like what you guys will see when you go through the tutorial. Okay, so this time it wants us to make something that looks like this, okay? And so it tells us the instructions here. It says left click and drag this anywhere on the view screen to see how it works. Okay, so like this, okay? And you know, you see, I mean, if you follow the instructions, I think the tutorials are really good. So tell you what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let you go through the tutorials on your own. I'm gonna go back and just show you a few things that is crucial for you to know to do tonight's homework. All right, so when you go into Tinkercad and you go into your dashboard, this is what it's going to look like. Now, you're not going to have anything down here in this section because you haven't, or at least those of you that haven't used Tinkercad before are not going to have anything down here. So I want to create a new design, so I'm going to click on there. And let me show you how I made the heart-shaped box. Okay, so what I did was I started off with a rectangular box. And then I wanted to make, let's view it from the top and let's center it on the screen. And then I'm going to back off. So I want it to be a different box than that. The default here is 20 by 20 centimeters. Let's say I want it to be bigger. I want it to be like 50 by 50. Okay. So now I have a touch screen, so I'm going to cheat by touching with here. Okay, so I want it to be 50 by 50. So you can see as I move this around, it tells me what the sizes are. So there's 50 by 50. Okay, there. So my box is now 50 by 50. And the thickness is okay. I mean, if I wanted to change the thickness, let's say I want it to be 10 centimeters tall. Okay, so you can see now I've created a box that is now 10 centimeters tall and oops. Okay, and the box is 50 by 50. Okay, this is kind of annoying there. Okay, so it's 50 by, oops, so now I've messed it up again. Let's put it back to being 50 by 50. Okay, all right there. And by the way, if you ever accidentally do something, you say, oh, I didn't want to do that. If you click on this little undo arrow there, it takes you right back to your last thing. Okay, now I have a box, but what I wanted was a heart. So how do I take this box and turn it into a heart? Well, let's bring in a cylinder. So if I bring in a cylinder like this, and you can see, so there's the default. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to make this cylinder be bigger. Now I want to view the cylinder, so let's center the cylinder there, and let's just back out a little bit here. So how big should I make my cylinder? How about if I, or my cylinder, my circle, I'm going to make it be 50 by 50 also. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it over here. So it's like that. And then let's recenter it here. Okay. So you can see that it's a little bit off center. Okay. So I wanted the left edge of this to line up with the left edge of that. And it's a little bit off center, but that's okay. What I can do is I can click on the circle, click on the square, click on align, and say I want to align the left edges. And I want to let's see. Now I could align it like that, but that's not what I want. Let's do it like this. Oh, and by the way, another way, if you want to grab all of them all at once, what you can do is, I mean, instead of just clicking on this one and holding down the shift key and clicking on the other one, the other thing I could do is come over here, right click and hold, and then drag. So that way I've selected them all. Okay, so let's go back to here again. So let's say that I want to undo the center there. Yeah, he's just not wanting to work here. Okay, so let's do this a different way. Okay, so I'm just going to do the left edge and only the left edge. Okay, now let's make it so that the thickness of these two guys is the same. So I'm going to bring this down till he's 10 inches. Okay, so you can see I've kind of sort of got a heart going, but not quite. So in order to make it be a heart, I need another one of these circles. Now I could drag in another circle and resize it and everything, but there's an easier way. So I'm going to delete that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this circle, which is already the right shape, and I want to duplicate that. Okay, so if I click over here, I see how it says duplicate and repeat, or I could also do Control D. Okay, so it may not look like it, but I've just duplicated. So if I drag this guy over, you'll see that I now have two of them. So if I position him right here like this, okay, then you can see that now we're getting something that looks like a heart, but they're different sizes, different colors, what I meant to say. So I want them all to be red. So I'm gonna left click up here, I'm gonna drag down here to select them all, and now I'm gonna make them all be red. Okay, so I have a heart now. Now, what I could do is I could merge these guys all together so that they become one object. And now I have a heart. Okay, but if you look at the heart here, if you look at this round edge, you'll see that it's not really a very good rounded edge. You see all these, you see that this thing is not really round. There's a straight line here and a straight line here and a straight line there. So it's not really a very good circle. And I wish it was. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you a new feature. So first thing, I'm going to ungroup these guys. And then I'm going to select my two circles. So I've selected the one. Now I'm going to hold down the shift key and select the other. And then there's a couple options here that we didn't play with before. And it looks like when you've got multiple ones selected, it won't let you do that. So let me just select one at a time. Okay, so you see these options here where it says sides. All right, so this circle is not really a circle. It's actually a 20-sided hexagon. So if I want it to be a good circle, what I need to do is I need to increase the number of sides. Now the maximum that it will let me do is 64. So even now it's not really a perfect circle, but it's better than it was before. So compare the circle on the right with the circle on the left. You see here, the circle on the right now actually looks like a circle, whereas the one on the left is still a hexagon. Okay, so this is one of the things you can play with. So let me fix the one on the left here and let's make it be more of a perfect circle. Okay, so now I've got something that looks a lot better. And so now what I'd like to do this time is, now that I've got the circles the way that I like them, I'm going to click here and I'm going to group them all together. So now I have a beautiful looking heart. Okay. All right, so you guys see how I did that? Any questions about anything that I just did? All right. Okay, so now, what if I want to make the lower part of my box? So I need the heart to be hollowed out. Okay, well, I can do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the heart and I'm going to click on duplicate. So now there's actually two hearts in there. And so I'm going to make the one heart a little bit smaller than the other heart. Okay. And let's view them from the top here. Okay. And I want them to be centered. So I'm going to click on the one, hold down the shift key, click on the other. And so now let's make it so that they're centered. So I'll do it that way. So now I know that they're centered in all different directions. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this center part, I'm going to lift it up just a little bit here, and then I'm going to turn it into a hole. And then now what I can do is I can merge the two of them together. And bingo. Okay, I now have a heart-shaped box that I can put stuff inside it. So you see how this works? And so if I want to put some candies inside it, I can bring, so let's say, so here's one of the candies that I'm going to put inside of it. Okay, but I'm not quite ready to put it inside yet. Right. So what I'm going to do, first off, it's too big. So let me make it be so it's a little bit smaller. Okay, so that's about the right size for a piece of candy. It's the wrong color though, so let's make it be a nice dark brown. I like dark chocolate. Okay, but it's got very, very square edges. And I don't like my candy to have square edges. Okay, so what could I do to make it so that the edges aren't square? Well, if I click on this, you'll see I've got these different different options that come up here. So what I can do is I can change the radius. So I can make it so that it's not a square, but it's more of an egg, or it's somewhere in between. So I'm going to make it be somewhere in between, kind of like that. And the number of steps here is like it was before. It's not actually a perfect circle. It's actually a hexagon. And if I bring it over here, you can see the different steps there. But if I want it to be rounded, I might come over here to maximum number of steps, and I get something that looks nice and perfectly rounded. Okay, so now I have a piece of chocolate that I can put inside my box. So let me just lift it up just a little bit because I don't want it to actually I don't want it to be embedded in the box. I want it to just be inside the box. So let me come in here, click on here, move it inside the box, and bingo. So now I have a piece of candy inside my box. And if I click on the box and click here, it's all centered. Okay. So you guys see how I did this? And then I could follow similar things to make a lid for my box and put other types of chocolates inside my box. Once I've got one piece of chocolate, then I can easily duplicate that. So now I have a different kind of chocolate. But let's say I don't want them all to be dark chocolate. I want some of them to be light chocolate. Okay, so there we go. So I got a dark chocolate and a light chocolate candy inside my box. And I can just keep on going from there. And okay, so all of the other things that you see over here, these are things that I can drag in here. You know, I can have star shapes. I can have donut shapes. I can have the text thing. You know, let's say I want to put some text on my box there. You know, bring it in here. and put it right there. And then I say, you know, Hendrix Chocolate Company. Okay. Okay. Oops. Looks like I messed up something there. Okay, there it is. Okay, so now it's working. So Hendrix chocolates, but it's too big. So well, you see how it works. I mean, okay. So what I've given you is enough that if you follow the example, you can do the assignment that's due tonight. But I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend that you go through these other tutorials because there are a ton of really good tutorials on here that teach you how to do everything you need to know. Okay, it's taking a sweet time coming up here. Okay, so under Learn here. Now, when you go under Learn, there's actually different ways you can do this. So the starters are these lessons, these guys right here. Those are just the really basics. But I actually prefer the click on lessons. And then if you click on these lessons, they will have you make a bunch of different objects and they will step you through step by step how to do it. In fact, tell you what, let's come into, let's do the ruler here, just so you can see how it works. And by the way, there's more than just 4 lessons. These are just the most basic ones. Okay, so this works exactly like we did before. It tells you what you're going to do. And now I've already been through it before, so I have to reset it here. So let's go in and do that one. Okay, so I want to do the ruler one. Come on. Okay. And so over on the left side, as soon as it boots up, okay, yeah, over on the left side here, it gives you the instructions on what to do. Okay, and then step-by-step instructions, just follow these instructions and you'll be fine. Notice this one's kind of an interesting one. They say, let's change the snap grid down here. Because right now the snap grid, the default snap grid is one that it'll snap everything to 1 millimeter. But let's suppose that that's not good enough. You want it to snap to better than that. So you can snap it down to different sizes like that. And in fact, if you want, instead of using millimeters, you can use inches if you want, and you know, all the different things here. So the tutorials, they do a really good job of stepping you through what you need to know. Okay, now that you have at least a little bit of an idea of how Tinkercad works, let's make sure that you fully understand what tonight's homework is. All right, so if we go into, oops, not that one, go into here. Well, tell you what, let's just go into Canvas this way. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so engineering principles. And let's view it as a student so that what you see on my screen more closely mimics what you guys will actually see. Okay, so let's go into the modules. And we're currently working on module 3, computer-aided design. All right, so this is the one. Now notice the due date on this is March 25th. So that's this coming Thursday. You guys know that Wednesday is a school day. It's just not a face-to-face day. Principal Wilson is giving us teachers that time to help get ready for going back to in-person teaching after school break. So even though we will not be meeting on Wednesday, Wednesday is still a work day for you guys. And so I'm going to make this assignment be due Thursday at midnight. If you click on here, it tells you what the assignment is. So start off, I want you to watch as many of the tutorials as you think you need in order to be comfortable using Tinkercad. Okay. Note that I do not expect you to be an expert at this point. Basic skills are fine for right now. Once you're comfortable using Tinkercad, I want you to make a 3D model of something that you think is cool. And if you can do something that makes me say wow, then I'll give you some extra credit. But it's not a requirement that you make me say wow. Just something that you think is cool. Now there are some rules here. Okay. One of the things is that your creation must consist of at least 3 different objects. So like for instance, in my example, the lid is one object, the box is a separate object, and then each one of the chocolates is yet another object. So I've got more than 3 objects in mine. You need to have at least 3. Okay. One of the objects must have a hollowed out space in it. Now in my case, I've got 2 objects that have hollowed out spaces. I've got the lid, which in this case is turned upside down. And then I've got the box here. Oh, speaking of turning things upside down, if you want to turn things upside down, that is a useful thing to know how to do. So tell you what, let me just quickly show you that. Okay, so I'm going to bring in a circle and I'm going to make it be like a flat disc. Okay, so I can move the disc around like this, but another thing that I can do, you see the little mark right here that's got the arrows that are bent, and I've got one down here too. Okay, if I click on this, then that allows me to tilt the thing. And I can tilt it all the way upside down if I want, right side back up again. And then if I say, oh, I didn't really want to tilt it, then I can just come back up here and just click on the undo. And then if I want to rotate it, that's what this one is for. This one is for rotating it. Okay, so these are really nice features to have. Okay, so back to here. All right, so if you want to put some of your objects inside the hollowed out space, that's fine, but you don't have to. And so the example that I've shown is just to give you an idea of the kind of complexity that I'm hoping to see. Remember those gear trains that I showed you at the beginning of the class here? I am not expecting you to do something with that level of complexity just yet. I'm just looking for something with, kind of like the candy box here. Okay. Do you understand what the requirements are? Give me thumbs if you do. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of thumbs. All right, so we have about 20 minutes left before this class period is over. I would recommend that you use these 20 minutes going through the tutorials in Tinkercad, unless you think that that's not necessary. And then remember, on Wednesday, we will not actually meet, but I do want you to use the time on Wednesday to work on your creation, and then upload the creation to Canvas by Thursday night at midnight. And the points that you get for doing this assignment do go on this term's grade. So make sure you get it done. Okay, last chance. Are there any questions at all about anything we've talked about? Questions about Tinkercad, questions about the assignment, questions about your grades at all? Because this is the last time we're going to see each other face to face before the term ends. So any questions about anything at all? Not hearing any, not seeing any. Okay, well then I'm going to say goodbye. You guys, please, before you leave, type by in the chat box. And then I will see you in, I guess, 2 weeks. It's going to be 2 weeks before I see you again. Oh my goodness, how can I live without your smiling faces for that long? I'll get by somehow. See y'all later.